want to welcome you all to La Riviere. I'm Randy Jamison. I am an architect, and I specialize in preservation and restoration. This is a high-style Queen Anne house built in 1890, and it burned the day before they moved in, burned to the ground, and they rebuilt it on the foundation and moved back in 1892. It gets its name from another house that sat here on the property called La Riviere, which sat just on the other side of this house, and the house in the back is the cook's house and is original to the original farmhouse. It was probably built about 1840. This is a Queen Anne style house. It is a transitional house into the arts and crafts movement. It's an owner-built house. It was built by Captain Billy Ingalls. He was an engineer. He worked for the railroad. Captain Billy is the son of Thomas Ingalls, who is the grandson of Mary Draper Ingalls. Captain Billy had a twin brother named Andy Ingalls, and he built the house across the river called Ingelheim. It was also built in 1891 and is a similar styled house as this one. Now, as Terry introduced me as an architect, I'll tell you that the Wilsons, when they bought this house, they bought it a little over a year ago from the family estate. AC is his mother was a Harvey, and he was a family member, and one of the reasons they were able to buy the house because they wanted somebody to buy it that was still in the family and able to maintain and take care of the house. So this house, what you're going to see is the way it's been probably almost from the day it was built. Very little things were done to it. It has had a couple additions onto it, but I think even the wallpaper is original, and I wouldn't swear to it, but I think when we dusted and cleaned it, all that was original too, because it was full. We have furnished the house. We bought the house with the archives and as many artifacts as the family would allow. Of course, they wouldn't give us everything and sell us the nicer pieces, but they did allow us to have a lot of the written history from Roberta Ingalls Steele. Steele, right. She married Paul Steele, and they lived here from about the mid-70s on when her mother was sick. Now, the house was built by Captain Bill. I'll give you a little of the history. The house was built by Captain Billy, who had a twin brother, Andy. Captain Billy and Minnie Snow Ingalls lived here and had no children. They married late in life. They were in their 40s. They had no children, and when they died, his nephew, William Ingalls. Now, one thing about the Ingalls, they're not very creative on their names. They're all named William, Mary, Thomas, or Andy. And there's at least two in every generation. Anyway, I'll call him the banker William. He inherited the house from Captain Billy. So Captain Billy and Minnie lived here from the turn of the century until he died in the late 20s, I think, and she died, sometime after that. And then the next generation to live here in its style would have been the banker William and his wife, Sally Harris Ingalls. And Sally Harris was from a prominent family in Snowville. So they lived here up until their deaths, and probably were the ones that lived in the high style of the house. So a lot of the artifacts and a lot of things came from them. When Roberta and her husband moved in, they really moved in to maintain the house and to take care of her mother, and then they were elderly by the time they got it, and they were more interested in keeping up with the family history than keeping up with the Joneses. And I think Sally Harris was a lot more interested in making sure she had a lot of the nicer things in life. And so we have a lot of archives from the Harris family and from the Ingalls family. And when I say we have the archives, we have some of the old ledgers from from the Ingalls Ferry, from the tavern. We have some of the artifacts from the tavern. There were a lot of things here, and I'll just say now they probably have a lot of intrinsic value, but not a whole lot of monetary value. They're very valuable to the history and the roots of our region. I'll say right here, I'll get a little plug in, and I'm sure I'm talking to the right group or preaching to the choir. AC and I both believe heavily in the preservation of the New River Valley and its history. We believe that as we stand here, many of our prominent buildings in history are being torn down or about to be torn down. And we have tried what we could do to try to preserve them. I'm sure, as y'all know, the Black House could have very easily been pushed over and knocked down. And, you know, it takes other people doing the same kinds of things and trying to preserve these things. St. Albans is about to go. It was built in 1890 as well, and the Rock House across the street is already under demolition. So there's a lot of things in the New River Valley that are worth preserving, and they should be watched after long before the wrecking ball is about to swing. By then it's usually too late. These houses are very expensive to maintain. If any of you have one, you know it. It has a huge furnace and no insulation. It heats up in the summer, and it's a labor of love. And I do love these old houses. When you get inside, there's nothing like it. It takes you back to another time. What we'd like to do, I can stand here and talk about the 250 years of Ingalls history that is behind this house, or we could start walking through. I think they were going back to their roots, their Scottish roots, when they designed the house. Like I said, this was originally all in cherry, and when it burned, they rebuilt it in oak. It definitely has a very arts and crafts flair to it. I'll point out this is Thomas Ingalls. This is his wife, Catherine McClanahan Ingalls. These are the McClanahans from the Roanoke Valley. I have to look at Bud knows more. Thomas is the grandson of Mary Draper Ingalls and the father of Captain Billy Ingalls and his brother Andy. They were how many children? Do you remember, Seth?
You mean from
Thomas?
Siblings?
Children.
He had 5 or 6. And maybe more. A couple of them died in infancy.
Right. So Thomas and his brother John were probably the ones that created the largest land holdings, especially John, in the family. They came in, they had the tavern. I think Bud lives in Ingleside, which is this side of the Ingalls Ferry, and Ingelheim is the other side of the ferry. And so John, especially in Pulaski County, bought a whole lot of land. Some of the records could go up to as high as 20,000 acres, maybe more, throughout this farm, I think, was originally about 340 acres. It was mostly the west end of Radford. And in my opinion, in 1890, or as the 1920s came, that the banker William was more interested in development and probably developed the west end and created the Radford, whatever company it was that had all the properties divided up there. For years, the heirs had trouble with right-of-ways up there. They'd owned little pieces of land all over the west end that were left over from other parts of the sales. When I say the heirs, there were a brother and a sister and a cousin who were Roberta's son and her brother Andy Ingalls, 2 children. And they inherited their grandparents' property. So this is actually this is Grandma's house to them. And the house across the river is actually where the matronly aunts lived. And so they remember going over there as much as they do coming here, I think. We found this picture in the archive. If anybody knows what it is or where it is, I'd like to know. It may be somewhere in Saltville from the Harris family. But if you want, we can step into the parlor a minute. This is the parlor. This would have been their formal place to entertain guests, to entertain visitors. This room is, faces the river. This house, when I say it's transitioning, you see it has all these open ways. All this can be opened up for lots of transition, but they do have pocket doors that close off each one of the rooms individually. And your old Victorian houses, each room was pretty much a separate thing on its own. Each room has a fireplace, and the heat system is original to the house. So those were some of the modern conveniences. We have 3 dead furnaces in the basement. The electricity was added later. They had gas. This is one of the arts and crafts things, is they have an ingle nook. Now, from my point of view, it's not a real ingle nook, but it is a fireplace under the stair. The chimney goes up and under the stair landing and up the outer wall. In a real arts and crafts house, this would have benches beside it, and you'd be able to sit there. This, we didn't know what it was for a long time. This is a sword valet. It's made to hang your sword so you don't punch holes in the furniture when you come in. And we'll go on upstairs if y'all want to come on. You can at least come out back into the foyer. As you come up the steps, you'll see a lot of the curve and the handwork that was gone into building all this. All this was handmade. All the curves are curved so that they create the curves. We have a curved radiator. Captain Billy and Minnie were devout Presbyterians, and if you go to the Presbyterian church in Radford, you'll see very similar windows that have their names in them. So they probably got them about the same time. This is the upper parlor. This is probably where more of the family spent time together, the ladies spent time together. One thing about the Ingalls in this time period is the women were educated. They went to college, but they weren't allowed to work. So that's probably the worst thing you could do, is have a lot of smart women sitting around. Without anything to do.
Big mistake.
So we have tons of these kinds of handmade throws, and there are lace and stuff all over this house. They also formed a club called the Radford Current Events Club. It was all the ladies. They met here. We have their journals for about 10 or 15 years, starting in the mid-1890s. Huh? It is interesting. They're all very interesting. This was probably a sleeping porch, but in the archives they say they dried their clothes in one of the upstairs sleeping porches. So we assume this is a laundry porch. And so that's why we've got it set up like this. This is the front bedroom. It's probably a room that they had a couple of big beds in. Since they had no children, it wasn't a children's room, but it could have been used for something like that. This bed is probably one of the older beds. You can see where they had this crank for the ropes. This is probably from the tavern, is what they told us. It's walnut. And these are some of the linens. They're very, I don't even know how to say this. Marcier, I think, is what this linen is called, but it's they don't make them like this anymore. Radford was going to be the new Pittsburgh. Oh. And they really thought that they were going to be blessed with everything that they could ever be blessed with. And that's why all these houses were built about the same time. That's why the foundry was built. They thought the coal and steel industry would come here, and that's what they looked for. Within 6 years, they had a big crash, and the Harvey House went up for sale. Harvey's bought it. This is probably the master bedroom. We say that because it has the bay, probably for a seating area, not quite so much wall space for beds. It has a sleeping porch. And I'll shut these originally because it gets hot out here. We set up some of the doll furniture that we found in the house. And this is a small sleeping porch, but they had hammocks, and you can see the hooks where the hammocks hung. Yeah, the windows slide back. This concrete was added at a later date. I think it's shingle, brick below the first story and the second story shingle. But this went all the way up at one time. You can see it a little better on the outside. Again, this was considered a modern house because it had closets, and that closet actually walks through to the bathroom. So, the trims are very detailed in this house. I don't know if you noticed downstairs we have shutters. There's shutters that fold down into this.
That thing pops up.
Yeah, this rolls back. I'm not sure which ones I can get to open, but there's shutters, and they slide all the way up and shutter the windows.
Interior.
I can show you on downstairs.
Use my finger.
It's right here in the middle. There was an indentation. I haven't tried these. The one downstairs I know I can open. I'll show you. This is another family bedroom. Now, because of the fire, that's one of the reasons we don't have, most of the furnishings are from the 1890s on. Okay, but this one piece is probably one of the oldest pieces and probably survived by being somewhere else. One thing that did happen as different family members died, they did bring things here to store it over the years. So we ended up with the archives from several different branches of the family. This would be considered a Great Road piece. It's a linen press. The Great Road is a term used for furniture that was made as they came down the Great Road from Philadelphia down the Shenandoah Valley, and they got here and they decided to go right or go straight. You know, they went across the river to the Ohio Valley, or they continued going to North and South Carolina. So these were made by some of the craftsmen that would have come down along that way. This is the bathroom. This was another modern convenience. The bathroom has been renovated as they got older. They came in and put something more convenient, but we do have pictures from Woodworks that he took before they restored the bathroom of the original bathroom and the original tub. And we actually have the original plumbing fixtures that we'll put back in. This would have been another bedroom, probably more of a family room, or I'm not sure that they had servant rooms. They had outbuildings. This house that you see out the window is called the cook's house. The cook always lived there. But it's a very colonial style building with a huge fireplace and one bedroom above. And it would have been more, prior to this house. There were other buildings outside. If you look out this one, you see a concrete foundation. That was the original ice house. The house does have a full attic. It is finished in terms of plaster. It's not electrified. The door back here is a stair up to the attic. Now they did have a huge lead line tank that they collected water up there off of the roof and used that for the toilets and the stuff in the house. So Mr. Engineer was very innovative in his designs. I hope they didn't drink much of the lead, but if you've met some of the family, you might question that. So. I'm just kidding. Disclaimer there. I talk about the Harvey house because all of these are different projects to me, but a lot of the furniture from the Harvey house is here. This is one of the pieces from there. This is probably also a very old 1700 piece from the Great Road era. This buffet was in the house. This was an original piece of the house, and the crystal was also part of the collection that came with the house. This is the porch furniture off the Harvey house porch.
I don't know about the Harvey house.
The Harvey house is another significant house in Radford. It was built in 1891, and it's on the corner of 8th and Harvey. It's just up on the hill from here, and Mr. Wilson owns it as well.
But they're not connected with the Ingles, right?
Well, Mr. Wilson
Well,
is.
Mr. Wilson is, but I mean, Harvey's is a different family, right?
They married in about the great-grandparent generation. I guess when you're in an area for 200 years, you start to become related to more and more people. It's not a direct line. It is a marriage line. They married in. And what this family did a lot, too, which was common, is brothers, let's see if I can get this right without sounding wrong, brothers would marry sisters. A brother in one family and another brother would marry the sisters in another family. My family did this as well, the Jamisons. I have double first cousins. And this is a, yeah, these are the shutters. They drop completely down out of sight. They're 3 sections, so you can pull up all 3, and they close off the window completely. These, and some of it's needed for the sun side of the house. They need a little oil, a little soap. Well, the butler's pantry is right here. It has a pass-through to the dish area, and we'll go through here to the kitchen. Now, it is a long walk back here to the kitchen for not to see much. They did restore one part of the kitchen, upgraded again, you know, for the people that, as they got older, they needed. You can see part of the original hearth for the wood stoves and the cook stoves that sat here. This also has a concrete floor on top of it, you know, and this tile is laid down on top of it. It's a very utilitarian kitchen. In the summers, they probably cooked out in the cook's house and brought the food in from out there.
So now, as it's restored, will you be pulling up like the linoleum and trying to restore the cabinetry of some sort?
Yeah. We'll try to go back to more of the original look. And the original look was probably more freestanding cabinets or wall cabinets such as this. This is actually out.
Excuse me, do you have plans from all the different transitions or not?
Not yet. This house they acquired because they could at the time. It was either buy it or let it go. Ken Farmer was already contracted to sell all the furnishings. So they came in and bought it before the other houses were done. And as their architect, I don't advise them to start this one until the others are done. They also own a building on Main Street next to Wade's that we're renovating too. So something like a boutique hotel or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, do you bury the electrical lines in the restoration?
Yeah.
Just to get, even though this is part of the history of the...
I don't know. That wire mold is probably from the 40s.
Yeah.
The light fixtures are definitely from the 50s or something, 60s.
When is your anticipated completion date of the Harvey?
It's been under renovation since his mother bought it in 1976. But we're closer than we've ever been. Actually, one of the aunts, who will be 92, has asked that her birthday party be given there next year. So,
Would it ever be open to the public? We actually live a couple blocks away from it.
okay.
We walk at it when we walk by.
Yes, and we're dying to
Well,
look at it.
if you see a little man out in the yard pulling weeds, that's Mr. Wilson.
I
So
might ask him.
he'd be glad to show you around. He's very nice.
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
All right, I'm going to have to turn the train again. Come on in. This is the library. We do have a lot of the artifacts laid out in here. A lot of the things that we've found that I think are of interest. Right after the Captain Billy and Minnie moved into the house, they had a severe lightning storm outside. And one of their aunts, her name's Fanny Bass, was trying to calm the cat down. And she was standing in front of this mirror. And the lightning flashed and caught her image in this mirror. This is Fanny's portrait. And this is a painting she did for one of the family members as a wedding gift. Now, if you stand about where I am and look at the mirror,
I see it
You'll see her profile right in here, and you'll see the cat right there. And I have to get out of the way of the light.
Oh my goodness.
Keegan.
It probably came through these windows. That's the only way.